Good morning, everyone. We don't need studies to prove that prices on the items we use the most are pinching our budgets. The monthly inflation report shows prices in most sectors are still stubbornly high, up to 8.3% over last year. It's the statistic we're all paying attention to these days, but getting that number takes a lot of work from hundreds of people across the country. Bradley Blackburn follows one of 475 economic assistants who fan out every month checking actual prices.
Casey Wenzel isn't at the grocery store to shop, but she is searching for something very specific.
I'm looking for a 7.5 ounce can of mackerel.
Wenzel is one of 475 economic assistants with the Bureau of Labor Statistics who fan out across the country every month checking actual prices.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next item.
And how precise are we talking here?
Very precise, very accurate.
Down to the penny?
Down to the penny.
Pennies matter because they all factor into the Consumer Price Index, the monthly inflation rate used in calculations for everything from Social Security payments to salaries. Maureen McDevitt Green oversees price programs for the Philadelphia region.
I expect most people think that there's some computer someplace that's just like whirling around and spitting out a number, but this is very real.
They track prices for some 100,000 goods and services. Everything from canned mackerel to cars, rents to repair work.
We price telecommunications, we price tuition, we price daycare, anything that you can think about, we're pricing it.
Wenzel has been doing this work for 16 years, and a day on the job means making calls to a gas station.
Price per gallon, please.
And stopping by a bike shop.
Great, thank you so much.
We can't show you the exact stores or products because their confidentiality is protected by law, but the data collectors are precise.
Have you ever thought about going on the Price is Right?
No. I can't believe you asked me that question.
Taking the guessing out of the prices that really matter. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, Central New Jersey.
All right, so interest rates increased this week as one way to slow inflation. This could have a big impact on the cost of borrowing money for a home or a car. Slower inflation is also a top priority for the Biden administration. Caitlin Huey-Burns has more from Washington.
Today, the Federal Reserve is at the center of the fight to bring down inflation. Overall, prices for just about everything have gone up 8.3% in the past year. Groceries spiked more than 13%, electricity by almost 16%, rent nearly 7%. So in the hopes of bringing down prices, central bankers are expected to raise interest rates by 0.75 percentage point, the fifth rate hike this year.
They're on the warpath, aggressively raising rates.
President Biden can't tame inflation, but he told 60 Minutes he's optimistic about getting it under control.
We hope we can have what they say, a soft landing, a transition to a place where we don't lose the gains that I ran to make in the first place.
That soft landing involves bringing prices down without sparking such a big slowdown that the economy slips into a recession. And the rate hikes will have other direct impacts on Americans when it comes to borrowing. The average credit card interest rate is already at an all-time high of more than 18%, and it could go even higher. And when it comes to buying a home, rate hikes have helped push a 30-year fixed mortgage above 6%. That's more than double from a year ago and the highest in 14 years. Economist Mark Zandi says odds of a recession are about 50-50.
If we get a little bit of luck, we don't get hit with another shock, and we get some reasonably good policy making by the Fed, we should be able to make it through. But those are a lot of ifs.
There are concerns all of this could further rattle Wall Street. And with the midterms just 7 weeks away, the economy remains the top issue for voters. Caitlin Huey-Burns, CBS News, Washington.
All right, ask anyone who shopped for a car recently and they'll tell you about that it hasn't been easy, but prices for used vehicles are finally falling. That's good news if you're looking to buy, and potentially a ticking clock if you're weighing a trade-in. Christian Benavidez reports from Delray Beach, Florida.
It's been one of my favorite vehicles I've owned.
Jody Vining came to this Delray Beach car dealership looking for the best trade-in value for his pickup truck.
I was actually trying to stay sort of ahead of the wave and try to get like the most I can get for the trade. before, before the bottom falls out.
While that bottom is still far off, prices for used vehicles are finally starting to decline, down almost 0.5% from July to August.
What people want to feel is they're not overpaying for something that's a necessity.
Teddy Morse is CEO of the Ed Morse Automotive Group. He says he expects used car prices will continue to drop, and that's good for the dealership and the customer.
When we can buy the vehicles cheaper, that means the customer is going to be able to purchase them cheaper.
Inventory is sticking around longer too, as rising interest rates cause some consumers to pump the brakes.
At the height, as soon as we would get a vehicle coming in, you would have 3 or 4 people waiting to look at that vehicle to buy it. And the cars wouldn't sit here more than a couple days at most. We're seeing that start to take a little bit longer.
Even as used car prices are just starting to pull back, the same is not true for new cars. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show new vehicle prices were up 10.1% in August over last year.
On the new car side, there is still a supply chain issue related to the availability of semiconductors.
Experts expect higher interest rates could drive down new car prices eventually. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Delray Beach, Florida.
When we come back, a look at the damage from Hurricane Fiona. That story is just ahead. After slamming the Turks and Caicos with winds up to 125 miles an hour, Hurricane Fiona set its sights on Bermuda. The storm also forced more than 12,000 people from their homes in the Dominican Republic because of flooding. And in Puerto Rico, more than 1 million people there are still without power. Correspondent David Begnaud is there.
We set out from San Juan to Lajas. That's a town on the southwestern side of Puerto Rico, right near where Hurricane Fiona made landfall. How long have you lived here?
25 years.
In the hills above Lajas, we met Olga Vega, right outside her home. She and her daughter rode out the storm in the bathroom. Part of her tin roof was ripped off, but her problems don't end with the hurricane.
It's very dangerous here. This was because of the tremors.
Oh, because of the earthquake.
Yes.
She reminded us that this area has been dealing with small earthquakes for the last 2 years.
How are you doing emotionally?
I am beginning to feel weak. I have nothing. I don't have clean clothes and everything is out of place.
No water, no power, no roof.
No water, no power.
And she is not alone. The vast majority of Puerto Ricans are still without power. Roughly half don't have water.
Is there any more flooding in Lajas?
No.
It was the mayor of Lajas, Jason Martinez, who took us around saying people weren't waiting on the government to show up. They were helping each other clean up quickly. Martinez is a former electric lineman who helped to restore power after Hurricane Maria 5 years ago. He made this prediction now.
Maybe 2 months to be ready to get light again.
Oh, you think it'll take 2 months?
2 months, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right now.
From Lajas, we flew east over the municipality of Jauco and saw part of what one expert called the worst hit to Puerto Rico's agriculture industry in 20 years. Fields of plantains, bananas, dairy products, all underwater and ruined. Then we landed in Salinas, where Puerto Rico's Governor Pedro Pierluisi had just arrived.
My assessment is that there's a substantial majority of the customers will get their power back by the end of the day tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Look, that is a bold but promising prediction, especially for an island that 5 years ago after Hurricane Maria was without power for months, some people for a year. For the governor to say that, and by the way, when he says tomorrow, he means today, that could be a big deal. If it doesn't happen, you better believe the people will hold him accountable. David Begnaud, CBS News, Puerto Rico.
Well, despite scorching temperatures we're feeling outside, we are indeed headed into the fall and the holiday season, and that will bring seasonal scammers. The Carroll and Montgomery County Sheriff's Office issued a warning to residents concerning gravel and asphalt scammers that have been making their rounds. The Sheriff's Department says the alleged scammer will prey on elderly residents by offering work for a small fee and then demanding more money using threatening tactics.
They just need to have something in writing, and then if they start pressuring them, you know, if it's not what they say, call us. Call some law enforcement. Get us involved, before you write them a check or before you give them some money, especially if you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Best thing that they can do is get something in writing, some kind of legal document.
We heard similar message from the Better Business Bureau. Here's some advice from them. Before you hire a door-to-door contractor, request business information. Be aware of those high-pressure selling tactics that they have. And just as you heard the sheriff there say, get everything in writing. It's all to protect yourself. All right, a little later, a treasure trove of photographs will show you next on Mid Morning. All right, welcome back. Seniors 65 and older who have had COVID-19 may have a substantially higher risk of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease within a year. That's according to a new large-scale study. Mandy Gaither has more on the research and the possible links between coronavirus infection and cognitive function.
An alarming new look at COVID-19 and its effects on the brain. Researchers studied the health records of more than 6 million seniors.
Then we asked, in people over 65, is there an increased rate of new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease in those who had COVID? And there was.
The study's co-author, Dr. Pamela Davis, says the seniors studied who got COVID-19 were diagnosed in the first year of the pandemic, before antivirals and before most people were fully vaccinated. The researchers found that group had a substantially higher risk of getting a new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease within roughly a year of COVID-19 compared to those without a documented coronavirus infection.
We were a little bit surprised at how much of an increased hazard there was for developing Alzheimer's disease in such a short period of time.
While COVID-19 has not been found to cause Alzheimer's, Davis says the research shows they are linked. She says inflammation, sometimes caused by COVID-19, may be a risk factor.
There are many possibilities. Of course, the one that's most worrisome is that COVID itself interacts with the brain and either accelerates or tips people over into a dementia kind of a profile.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And those studied who were over 85 years old were more at risk of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, as were women in that group studied. The late Gordon Parks was considered one of the most renowned photographers of the 20th century. The public will soon get the chance to see his early work for the first time. Nicole Killian gives us a snapshot.
Gordon Parks looked through his lens at the poor and the powerful.
He's really documenting the second half of the 20th century.
Benjamin Talton is director of the Moreland Spingarn Research Center at Howard University, which acquired more than 250 photographs from Parks' collection.
What was it like for you going through these photographs?
It was actually mind-blowing because I know him from Shaft. I had never seen a color photograph of Malcolm X.
Before he captured iconic images of Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Sidney Poitier, the self-taught Kansas native honed his craft in the nation's capital at the height of segregation, launching his career as the first black staff photographer at Life magazine.
The collection really does span his earliest work from the 40s all the way to the 90s. He shot pictures at Howard University in 1941. And now it's going back to Howard University so that future generations see the importance of this man.
Developing new exposure to Parks' prints. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Washington.
Ringo Starr is back, and we will have a conversation with him next. All right, we're back. Ringo Starr is back on the road with a little help from his friends. That's Ringo and his all-star band. They're finishing the U.S. leg of their latest tour this fall. Ringo also just released his third EP in 2 years called EP3. Anthony Mason met up with him in Fort Lauderdale, where he had a day off between shows. They talked about Ringo's music, the recent Emmy-winning Beatles documentary, and picking up an unexpected lockdown hobby.
Ringo is back on the road with his all-star band.
Touring gets old for some people.
Well, I changed the band, so it keeps it
now.
It's the 15th lineup since the 82-year-old icon first assembled the group back in 1989.
I used to say we're the best 1-800 band on the road.
Ringo's all-star band now includes Edgar Winter, Steve Lukather of Toto, Colin Hay of Men at Work, Greg Bissonette of David Lee Roth's band, Hamish Stewart of Average White Band, and saxophonist Warren Ham.
The rehearsals are always hard the first day.
It's day one, man.
They first went out on tour in May, but had to postpone when COVID caught up with them.
We did 9 gigs and 2 people went down.
Did you ever get it?
No, not yet so far, thank you. Peace and love.
But during the peak of the pandemic, he still had to hunker down at home.
How do you play it safe? Because then you're keeping other people safe.
I took half of the gym and made it an art room so I could splash paint around, and the guest house. 10 years ago, I turned into my home studio.
I've got some news to tell you. We're all in this together now.
Ringo recorded 2 EPs here when he couldn't tour, and has just released another, EP3.
That saved my life still in the pandemic. I started painting and started doing spin art.
I heard that, spin art?
Yeah, because someone showed me this thing on TikTok.
Yeah.
Where some kids had like 8-inch canvases, and then they'd stick it to a house drill.
Yeah.
That little, and they'd go.
But obviously you get some pleasure out of it.
I love it. That's the magic of painting, because you do something and wow, look what came out of it.
It's kind of like music in a way.
Well, yeah, music is great the same, you know, but you all have to play in the same key.
We met in Florida last week, where the all-star band was on the road.
I'd like to be under the sea.
And where the Beatles had traveled back in 1964.
All my loving.
After their American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Was the first time you came here to Florida after The Ed Sullivan Show?
Was for the Ed Sullivan Show. We did it in New York and then we did it here.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something.
And then they took us to see Don Rickles, and we'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
What did we know?
Yeah.
We just, first time from England.
Yeah.
New York was great.
If those were the early days of the Beatles' mega success,
Oh, you recording our conversation?
the recent Disney Plus docuseries Get Back, directed by Peter Jackson, captures the band near its end.
It would be nice under paradise.
You really liked what he did with that.
I loved what he did.
The nearly 8-hour documentary follows the Fab Four in 1969, recording what would be their final album, Let It Be.
Did anything you saw surprise you or make you emotional in any way?
The only thing that got me crazy was, you see, I don't really play till they've got the song. I just keep time.
Yeah.
And so we had get back to it, you know, just straight rock. And then on the roof, it's I thought, now what made me do that?
Yeah.
How did I get to that?
Yeah.
And maybe it's in the film, but it wasn't. It's just like one of those things. I just changed it.
Yeah.
And for the better.
I've got a feeling.
The impromptu performance atop the headquarters of Apple Records in London would be the Beatles' last.
That roof concert was amazing.
Well, yeah, but that's typical Beatles, you know.
But it's not exactly an ideal place to play a gig.
Well, it is. We did it.
Ringo's passion for the drums was born at age 13, when young Richard Starkey was hospitalized with tuberculosis.
And to keep us busy, this woman came in with a lot of triangles, tambourines, drums this big that you hit. And I hit that drum, and I wanted to be a drummer from that moment.
At 20, Ringo quit his job in a factory to play with a Liverpool band, Rory Storm and the Hurricanes.
But every member of our family came to our house to tell me, "Are you crazy?"
When all your family said don't do it, you weren't swayed at all.
No. And then as the foreman of the factory said, "You'll be back, Starkey. You'll be brushing the floors." Yeah, factory life.
You never saw him again.
No. I did drive up, though, to the factory in my new car to say hi to the guys.
Baby, you can drive my car.
In 1962, Ringo left the Hurricanes to join that other Liverpool band, the Beatles.
But anyway, it worked out really well.
Indeed it did.
Thank you. Peace and love, everybody. Both of you watch this.
Anthony Mason, CBS News.
Stay with us. We'll be right back to wrap things up. All right, be sure you stay connected with us. We'll see you back here next time. Have a great day.